Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about Doom the Dark Ages because we just had the first weekend of the game itself, and typically this is when player numbers spike. This is when we get a chance to see how much of a success or a failure a game actually was, and I have to admit that I'm surprised to say that it does look like Doom the Dark Ages flopped, and I have to say that this to me is just kind of mind-blowing because it seemed like it had so much marketing, so much hype, so much conversation. It was at every showcase and stuff. And also, it's the newest game in the Doom trilogy. Doom 2016 had a massive fan base. Doom Eternal is considered by a lot of people to be the best shooter of all time. Why is it that the Dark Ages seems to have failed? Now, we're going to talk about it. We're going to take a look at some current player numbers and stuff because I do almost think that this is indicative of a growing problem with a lot of games that are so high budget and really just don't seem to grab the love of the fan base in a way that they maybe used to have done. But let me explain. Hi, hope you're having a great day. And if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, this is a bunch of tweets. I pulled up a bunch of stuff I want to take a look at, but part of it is just the fact that I wonder how much of this is the Game Pass effect. People have been discussing the fact that sometimes with games, this is the first Doom to launch day and date into Game Pass. Now, people debate about the Game Pass effect, about if you're getting a game for free, how much that's going to affect the full price sales. If you're paying $70, $80, $100 for a game, how many people instead are going to go, oh, I'll get it on Game Pass? Or how many people say, oh, it's on Game Pass, it must suck? I do see that talking point. Now, obviously, that's not every single game. There are games that still sell, like Expedition 33 launched on Game Pass and is still a monumental success, but these numbers are very provably bad. It had 31,000 concurrent players on Steam. Doom 2016 had 44,000 concurrent players, and Doom Eternal had over 100K. Now, I have to say that when I see this, it seems bleak. But I think a lot of this does come down to the fact that people are blaming it on a lot of, in my opinion, tinier issues. Doom the Dark Ages is provably a slower game. The whole motto of Doom the Dark Ages is stand and fight instead of trying to zip line around or doing dashes and stuff. For the most part, it is about parrying blows, about trying to really melee down people with your flail and stuff like that. And I do enjoy it. I think that even though I gave it an 8 out of 10, I'm at the end of my second playthrough of Doom the Dark Ages. It is technically the worst of the current era Dooms, but even then it's by the tiniest margin. But going even beyond that, high system requirements and the lack of composer Mick Gordon. Now, this is stuff that has become very much a problem, which is that it is ray tracing required. This game, it requires an immense amount of power from your system, and it also makes it where if you're trying to play it on Steam Deck, because you can't turn off ray tracing, this game is a real power sucker. And also just the fact that, honestly, it doesn't run particularly well just in general when it tries to play on a handheld. And also, I'll be honest, I am missing Mick Gordon. But look, my thing is that when I see the combat of this game, somebody made this great edit where one of the things the game does is whenever you do a big parry, a big counter blow, anything like that, the game slows down for dramatic effect. Personally, I love it. I have seen people complaining about it though, saying that it hurts the pace of the game, that you're constantly going into slow-mo over and over again. This edit has become incredibly popular where people are saying, I wish this was an option. I wish I could tell the game, hey, I know how to parry. Hey, I know what I'm doing. Hey, let me just choose the pace of it. I think it's just the fact that this game, something about it seems to have captured the audience. Something about the Dark Ages has just failed to capture the attention of gaming. Like, yes, it is having decent reviews. I actually decided to pull it up on Steam. But this, 86 positive reviews, to me, it's not even about the positive reviews. It's the fact that it has about 9,000 reviews. Why is it that nobody is buying the game? Why is it that nobody seems to be excited about it? I do honestly think a lot of it just comes down to the fact that right now, stuff is so damn expensive. Maybe I'm being too bleak, maybe I'm being too grand and contextual about it, but there have been more and more studies that there are people, even hardcore gamers, are buying 1 or 2 games a year instead of 4 or 5 or 6 games a year. People are buying 1 to 2 games a year. And I think that it's starting to become that thing where if your choices are Doom the Dark Ages, which is a good game, but it's about 15 hours long, and it doesn't really have that replayability. There's not a ton of collectibles. There's not a lot of stuff. You can 100% platinum it pretty damn easily. Or if your options are to buy something like Expedition 33, a $50 game that I've now put almost 100 hours into, it does become that thing where people start to say, okay, why this? Why Doom? Why even care about it? Doesn't it ever get tiring constantly trying to look for the worst in everything? This is not meant to be a discussion about Doom the Dark Ages specifically. I'm just pointing out how exhausting it is to constantly be looking for a gotcha with every single game release. Now, I'll admit that I'm sort of bad about this as well, which is that I'm fascinated by the dumpster fires. I'm perpetually fascinated whenever a game seems like it's going to take over the internet and then it just doesn't. But even more than that, I almost think that my point of view is the fact that there is this special extra flavor, this touch that a lot of games are lacking now, which is that they don't seem to capture the attention of the audience. Maybe it's just that I'm going outside my bubble, but it does seem like in general, the internet, we've seen less fan art, less cosplay, less fan edits, less people capturing gameplay and turning it into a meme, less people doing silly wojacks of the Doomslayer. And I almost think that there is a marketability to the meme factor of taking a game and blasting the soundtrack, the Mick Gordon Dooms. People used to do all sorts of memes where like a normal person's doing a normal thing and you're blasting the Doom soundtrack. I feel like the Dark Ages never managed to drum up that silly excitement that is actually mandatory for the game itself. It just doesn't have that raw love that the other games did seem to have. I also see these very, 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 very long posts about, hey, this is what it's failing at. It's lost that. There's too much talking. There's not enough stuff. It's not about one man standing against hell. It seems like the Dark Ages ramps up the story more than Eternal, but with all these new characters, why should I care? What's next? Prehistoric Doom? Doom Samurai Wars? I think you see my point. I was excited at first like everyone else, but the more I saw the story, the less I cared. Unfortunately, Doom will never be what it was before. It's too mainstream. Don't mind me, I'll just be playing Doom 2. I think this stuff is interesting to me because, yes, just comparing it to Doom Eternal numbers is not telling the full story. Obviously, GG Man Lives, big fan of this guy, love his reviews. He's like, look, man, Doom Eternal dropped during the pandemic. Of course, it's going to have higher player numbers, but I almost think it's just the fact that, in general, now everybody is willing to wait for a sale. I know people even who do have high-paying jobs. Obviously, I'm a brokey. You watching this video, maybe you're a brokey, but there are people out there who earn, I don't know, 100,000. Is that a ton of money? Probably. There are people that are earning 6 figures who can afford a bunch of $60 games, but even they are getting to a point where they're like, okay, if my options are to buy a game for $70, that's 10 hours long, or wait 6 months and buy it for $20, I'm definitely going to do that. And I have friends that I know for a fact, I was in Discord with them last night, who are saying, I just don't care to buy Doom. There's other stuff to play. I can finish Expedition 33. I can play indie shooters that better convey that Doom speed to it. Doom the Dark Ages just doesn't make me want to stand and fight. It doesn't make me feel like I'm in a rush to go and play it. This is a rambly video because I really actually want to open up the talks to you, because I honestly don't know. I don't have a definitive answer about why this game flopped, but even though it probably sold pretty well on PS5, it probably sold pretty decent on Xbox. I mean, let's face it, it flopped on Xbox. I'm curious to see why it did so bad. I don't know. It almost feels like that Starfield effect, where Starfield isn't the worst game ever made, but it's the worst Bethesda game ever made. This isn't the worst shooter of all time, but I guess it's sort of the worst shooter that it has ever made. And that does start to say, okay, then there's other stuff I can play. I don't know. This is a rambling video. Hope you're having a great day. And if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.